All right. So relax, stay calm, take a breath. We just did this. Check in with your values. The other part we kept looking at is the behavior developmentally appropriate? What is their ability to make decisions? What is the concern behind the situation? We choose our response, and sometimes we need to debrief because it was tough. Now, can people see the value of being able to pass? Would you say that a person can still be in a learning situation when they choose to pass? Sometimes that's what keeps the learning situation alive, is that they have the room to say, oh, I'm not sure. Now, here's what that looks like at a 16 or 17. Somebody's trying to make moves on them, and they might not have the words. All they know how to say is pass, pass, because they learned it in your class. And they know they have the right to pass. So everything we're talking about 10 years down the road has a significant impact on their ability. And these are really little things, but pass can save them from exploitation. They might not be able to say, no, I don't want to, leave me alone, pass. Works. All right, strategies. So a lot of this makes sense about environments. We've talked about them, scheduling. But so what I want to move into is what do we use and how do we do it? We need to use visuals. Doesn't matter if they have an A in Physics 12. That has nothing to do with their ability to comprehend what we're talking about. I never have these sessions without visuals because I don't want them using up all their energy. I want them to be able to get through an hour. So what that can look like sometimes is I have different pictures of faces on the table. Someone who's angry, sad, scared, happy. And so we might be talking about something that happened at school, and when I say, how did you feel about that? Instead of trying to come up with the word, they can just point to the picture. Boom. We're in full communication, and all it took was a point. They didn't have to go through all of the stuff that they go through for language. The other thing they've taught me, young people, we're used to one mode at a time. I'm either writing, or I'm speaking, or I'm spelling. Many of our children who are neurodiverse, they need multiple modes to communicate. So I'm talking to somebody and I say, what did you get in math? That means A. That's great. And what did you learn about today in math? And all of a sudden what comes out is algebra. And then the next thing could be, and are you finding algebra hard or easy? They take their pen and write easy. 3 different modes for one conversation. If I had cut off the pen, or I'd cut off the sign language, I'd have missed 2/3 of the conversation. So sometimes we need to look at what modes are they using. And sometimes when they get older, we show them where they're using action that they need to find words. So I was working with a young girl, she's about 25, and she wants to do a recreational assistant program and work with seniors. And one of the things they're saying is, well, she's not assertive enough. It's very interesting. I was over chatting with her the other day, and at one point she said, I have to go somewhere. And she walked out down the hallway, and she came back with her hockey jersey on. I said, oh, are you going to a hockey game? She goes, yeah. I go, when does it start? She goes, in about half an hour. I said, oh, well, let's tie this up so you can go. And I realized she was in full communication about her event, but she didn't have the words. So then when I realized, it's not that she's not assertive, it's that she can't find the words for certain things, so she uses actions. And the people training her don't know that, so they think she can't speak up. She can speak up, but not always in words, which may mean she can't do that career. Or we can freeze the frame and say, if you didn't get out of your chair, what words could you have used to tell me what you just told me? With your body. And then we look to see if she has that ability, and if she does, we build it. Because that's actually the missing piece right now. That's the needle in the haystack. We're always looking for needles in the haystack. We find the right piece and they propel forward and we're shocked because it's such a little piece. But it's actually a big piece because it gives them a whole new paradigm. So if she can notice when she gets up to communicate with moving, and if she can access the words, it's going to shift her ability in the workplace. But first we had to find it, and nobody could find it. And as she did it in that moment, I went, you just gave me a whole world of communication with your body and no words. I get it. It's not that you can't be assertive. It's that you don't have the words. Let's see if we can build them. Well, she's so keen now. And she's going to a conference in a couple of weeks, and we're having these dialogues where she's actually using her hands to write down what she'd say. So by the time she goes to the course, she's got enough language about what she's been doing that it'll alter her experience. Why do I see that? How do I see that? Only because I raised 2 children with autism, and I had to learn to communicate with them with no clues, no hints, no words, and no body language. So there's an intuitive nature that it took to turn it into words. So I can see it instantly. And I can't explain how I see it other than it's innate now, because that's how we got to the point of functioning. All right, so use many modes of communication, and whichever one's working at the time, use that one. I remember asking my son, when they ask a question, grade 3, in math, and you don't put up your hand, is it because you don't know the answer? He goes, no, I know the answer. I just know I can't get my hand up in time. So I don't answer, but I know the answer. I said, thank you for sharing that, because my job is to make sure you know the answer. We have time to figure out how to shorten the time so that you put your hand up at the same time as your peers. We got our whole lifetime to figure that one out. I'm thrilled that you know the answer. Okay. Be concrete, specific, visual. We're going to look at how we do that. So I want to start with feelings. I always start with feelings, because this is an emotional topic. And they not only have to be aware of theirs, but they have to eventually be aware of others, if possible. I start with 4 very basic feelings. And I use things like this. So this, now notice, this did not cost $2,500. This is a piece of paper and a few lines. Most of the information you need you can get and make very inexpensively, okay? So this is happy, they'll say. But then I'll do something like this. I'm so happy I could cry. Is that happy? That's called tears of joy. But it's hard for our kids because the rules keep changing. Because a 3-year-old doesn't know tears of joy. A 3-year-old cries because they're sad, and they laugh because they're happy. There's nothing in between. And then we get to adolescence, and we start to mature socially and emotionally, and the next thing you know, we're hiding feelings, we're smiling when we're angry, we're quiet when we're scared. They learn, they go to the doctor, they're quiet like this. We don't know there's a hurricane inside because they've learned to hide their feelings. So the rule changes. They get into high school and they realize the only way to know how somebody's feeling is if you ask them. And hopefully they'll tell the truth. We can't always know by their face. Because I tell them, you look at one of the Vancouver Canucks crying and you go, it's because they won the Stanley Cup. You look at the other one, they look the same and they're crying, it's because they lost the Stanley Cup. You can't tell the difference unless we ask them, why are you crying today? We won the Stanley Cup. Oh, congratulations. It looks exactly the same. So feelings are tough. And if we can't read faces, it gets even harder, okay? So that becomes really, really important. So there are ways. The University of Cambridge has, if you go to the University of Cambridge autism site, research site, they actually have faces that you can see, and you can decide whether the person, like they look at the face and they try to figure out whether they're happy or scared, sad, or like that. And if they can't read the faces, they may never be able to read faces, so they have to learn to read other cues in the body, because the face is blind. I had a girl who was nonverbal, and I was asked to come and teach her about sexuality. She was 16, and she had 2 of her verbal, more typical neurotypical peers there. And we used puppets. I thought, I know I can reach her. I don't know how, but I've learned I can reach. And so I had different kinds of puppets and stuff, and I got them from the dollar store, and I had the big one, and they had the equivalent in the little. So that looks like the child versus the adult. No puberty, puberty, like that. And as we're working through this, I go to her home after one of the sessions, and her mom shows me her drawings. And she does the most beautiful drawings of people, and none of them have faces. And I realize she doesn't need to see my face. It's probably confusing her. She's trying to read the signals. So the next time, I took these cards on your table, the line drawings, the picture cards, and I put it up in front of my face. And she could see the picture, but not my face. Drove her neurotypical peers nuts. She was fine. And supposedly, I said to her, you must be very, very smart, because even though words aren't coming out. You're so calm. So you must be understanding everything. That's amazing. And I have all the time in the world to listen. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I got all the time in the world. Because they need, like the time it takes to think, get it out, can be quite a delay, to the point where we don't even think they're going to answer, and so we jump in and we just killed the communication because they were going to come in 1 second later, right? And so at one point, the first word she said, we have it up and we're on menstruation, and I bring a tampon out, and we've got this, and one puppet says her name. What do you think this is? My face is covered. Bring up that. She says, first word, a tampon. Second time, where does it go? Second word she ever says, in the vagina. She was taking it all in all along. She couldn't get it out. And it's the first time it came out. And the parents looked at me and said, oh my goodness, we better have, you know that map or that plan they wanted to do? We said, no, we're not interested. We better get that out. Because now that words were starting to appear in her world, total paradigm shift. Where do we go now? And that came from just using whatever sources I could use to make sure she felt like we were in reciprocal communication. And I realized my face was the biggest distraction. What a surprise. Right. The needle in the haystack. So sometimes we can use emotionometers. And the cat kit is quite great for that. Some of us use a 5-point scale, which is fine. It's an incredible scale. We're often using it for behavior that's challenging. So their relationship to it is, oh yeah, here it comes again. So sometimes I'll use other thermometers on purpose so that we can use the same idea, but we don't get trapped in their experience with the incredible 5-point scale. So this one goes from 0 to 10. And what's great about the thermometer over on your right is that what I can tell them is sometimes with our emotions, whether it's angry or scared, we go from 0 to 10. Boom. There's no 1, 3, 5, 7, 0 to 10. So the challenge becomes that those of us who are adults, we learn how to stay below a 5, or we wouldn't have a job. So whether we're angry, scared, surprised, we stay at a 5 and below, and we've figured out how to do that. So then I can tell them that's the game. Between now and when you become an adult, we need to figure out how you can manage being at a 5 and below in different situations when things happen that aren't necessarily great or upset you. So then they become kind of interested in, okay, I wonder how we do that. So then we start looking at, well, what makes you go to a 10? And they'll say, and then we'll look at things like healthy ways to share your feelings. And so sometimes I'll go like this, and I always have their attention because they don't like balloons popping. And I'll say, if we hold our feelings inside, sometimes here's what can happen. We might be happy about something, like we did really well on a test, but our friends failed, so we're not going to share that we're happy. We're going to keep it inside. And then we're angry because somebody didn't understand us, but we're not going to say that either. And then we're scared because we have to go to the doctor and get a shot, and we hate shots, but we're going to pretend we're tough. We're going to hide that too. Doesn't matter what the emotion is. And of course, I have their undivided attention. And I keep saying, it's not going to pop it. I'm not going to pop it. And they're like, so then I say to them, if I keep stuffing feelings, let's say in the balloon, and we keep stuffing them in there, what's eventually going to happen? They say, well, it's going to pop. I said, yeah, it blows up, kind of. So when people hold their feelings in, sometimes some people say we blow up, but it's not like there's blood and guts anywhere. That's not what's happening. What does it look like when we say a human being blows up? So then they say, oh, you mean they punch, or they kick, or they hurt somebody, or they scream? Yeah, things like that. And some of them are healthy, and some of them are not so healthy. So if you get all those feelings caught up inside, what are healthy ways to let them out? This is when they laugh, because you know what the balloon sounds like when you let air out. And they might say, go for a walk? Yes. What else? Listen to music? Yeah. I'll never forget, I had this one person and low functioning, like didn't look like they had any language, and we're rocking the whole time. And all of a sudden, they said, eat popcorn? They answered the question. And I always thank you for answering the question, because they answered the question. Don't get caught up in all this body stuff, because they can still communicate. It was amazing. So we went through all the different ways and we listed them. And then I asked them, for those, this is homework, you don't have to do it, but I'm going to encourage you because I was going to see them in the next week. But I'd like you to do one time in the week when you know you're upset about something or you notice you're getting upset, I want you to see if you can find a way to bring yourself down by yourself. Does that mean we can ask an adult for help? Absolutely, as long as you are the one that asks for the help, because that's part of taking care of yourself, is learning when to ask for help. And if you're not sure you can calm by yourself, absolutely ask an adult to help you. But one time in the week, I want you to see if you can do it. Because we got to start, they have to start being accountable for themselves if they can. And don't underestimate what they can and can't do based on what looks like their abilities. We don't know. Most of the things my children do today, the report said they would never do. I acknowledged the report, and then I went for the moon, because why not? So don't underestimate. So as this finished, they got the visual of it, and it was so neat to actually even see them in the classroom starting to use those ways of calming themselves down. So they must learn that, because they're not going to be safe in relationships if they can't calm themselves down by themselves or by getting help. What I like about that thermometer too is that you can have them on one side and the person who got upset on the other. So they might be happy because they thought they did a good thing by singing a song to this person over here because they thought it was a good song. So they're happy because they sang the song. This person over here has a sad face because the song was, "You're a baby, you're a baby." They didn't know that it would have that impact. So this person's upset and this person's smiling, and then we have to look at why they're not both smiling. Visuals, visuals, visuals. Okay? This one looks at what happened in the day. How did they go from okay to out of control? So with my son, when I come in and, where it says 2 o'clock, that's when they handed out the Smarties. Oh, okay. Or they were watching a video, they ran out of time, and they pushed stop. Yikes. I'm like, it's okay, it's not you guys, it's just, you might not want to do that again. At least give them some warning that it's going to happen, right? So sometimes that's the way we track a child when we can't figure out what's causing the meltdowns. Sometimes we have to go back and actually take it in frames. This is like the 5-point scale. Now, what I like about the 5-point scale, the incredible 5-point scale, is this. It can be used for things like behavior management because somebody is having meltdowns or explosive, violent behavior. But it can also be used, look at this one's about touching. And no touching is a 1, handshake is a 2, friendly hugs may be a 3, who, when, and where, kisses 4, butts and breasts is a 5. When girlfriend requests to be touched or says she is okay with you touching her or the butt or breasts. Now, obviously, this may be somebody that got into a relationship or is getting into a relationship. Because here's the thing. We teach them to be high functioning as possible. Some get to the point where they can actually go and be in the work environment and function. They get along with the colleagues, they're getting along with the staff, and they're doing their job. That means they now have the skills to be in a relationship, to start a relationship. If we haven't put in all the other pieces, trouble's around the corner. Because now we've put them in an environment where they're mixing and they're being what we call typical in the way they're coping, and they don't have the same knowledge as their peers. And I don't mean knowledge, I mean in a way that they can understand it, so if the conversation comes up with their peers, they could contribute because they know what we're talking about. That's what I mean. Okay? So sometimes what happens is we don't do that part. We get them ready for work and they're coping and everything. It's such an imbalance not to do the sexuality part. And you'll see, you will hear it everywhere. You'll go and listen to stuff about adults on the spectrum and new services, and you'll sit for 8 hours and you'll hear about work and all the things that they can do, and there'll be nothing about sexuality. We're setting them up to fail in an area that matters to us as human beings. It's called relationships, intimate relationships.